Motivation in Motion. Own your moment and get better today. All right, if you'll introduce yourself, please.
Okay, I'm Ray Goldsby.
Okay.
From Moore,
Yeah.
Oklahoma.
All right. Now, I've already been told humility runs through your veins, so I'm going to have to pull out all these great things you've done, okay?
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about how you got into coaching and why.
Well, I started off, I had great parents,
Okay.
and they wanted me to be a CPA.
Okay.
So-
Okay.
so-
why did they want you to be a
I
CPA?
don't know.
I got to find out.
My
Okay.
dad was in
All
the
right.
oil
All
field.
right.
My mom was a secretary for OU. So I don't know how they come up with that. But anyway, so I was in high school.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't even know what I wanted to do, but they wanted me to do that. So I said, well, okay. And deep down, I always wanted to be a coach.
Okay.
I loved athletics, played and all that stuff. But I started off in business at OU.
Okay.
And that lasted 1 year, and I said, I can't see myself sitting behind a desk and punching numbers or whatever. So then and I thought it was kind of a blemish if you say, well, what'd you major? I majored in PE.
Hey, don't tease it. That's my line. I've been telling people that for years.
See, that's what. But in back of mine, he said, well, you majored in PE.
Yeah.
PE, yeah. You can't do anything else, So it was always kind of back of mind, but I always wanted to do that. Finally I said, I'm going to do what I want to do, and may God direct me. And I said, he has to have a hand in it, or I never would have probably gone that direction.
Okay.
But anyway, so then that's how I got started, and because I loved athletics and stuff. And
Talk a little bit about your faith. So did it start in home?
I had great parents. Was church. Grew up as a Methodist, and was in church every Sunday school and church, and even though I thought I had faith, and all that, but as a kid growing up, it's not probably the dominant thing at that time. You're the best thing ever, and whatever you do, you accomplish yourself and all that. So I was well into my adult life, and probably FCA was one of the biggest contributing factors.
That's great.
Chuck Bowman, Gary Lauer, who was a high school coach and coached OU in track, and then he's since passed away, and John Odell, and John's dad, Fay Odell.
Yep.
They had a big influence on my Christian life. And then when I started coaching, Grant Taft, who was at Baylor,
Oh, yeah.
was a strong Christian, and I would go to clinics all the time, and I'd try to go to everywhere he was talking. Because he really impressed me, and I thought a great man, along with being a good coach. In fact, he said, I heard a selection one time. He said, talking about loving kids, loving players. He said, you can tell them you love them. I never heard that from a coach saying,
Right.
Telling the kids you love them. I thought, here's a college coach, saying that they can say to their players, I said, why can't high school coaches do the same
Right.
thing? So I learned a big lesson right there as far as treatment of kids and telling them.
Okay.
It's not going to break your jaw to say I love you.
Yeah.
And it's not going to make you any less of a man. And
It's interesting you bring that up. Of all the coaches that I've brought back so far and that we've had the blessing to kind of talk about, it's their love and their passion for this.
Yeah.
That still brings out, I think it's weird as Christian men, I will say this, I think the world tries to if you say you love you, then that's going to somehow make me less masculine,
Yeah,
right?
True.
Well, I'd actually say real men, gladiators, right?
Yeah.
Their love for what they do and their family
Yeah.
is what makes them great.
Yeah.
Right?
That's right.
And so I love that. Well,
And I heard Calvin mention this. Ironic that we're talking about that. 'Cause I heard Calvin, say if you could give any information to new coaches coming in, is, first of all, I really truly believe this is you have to have a passion for coaching. You have to have a passion because you're not going to be in it for the money. If you get in it for the money, you're in for the wrong reason.
Yeah.
Okay. And you have to have a passion for working with kids and loving kids.
Yeah.
And trying to develop them. And you don't really know when you're coaching.
Yeah.
If you're having you hope you have some positive influence on them. But I've noticed this after I've gotten out. You realize it later when kids start coming back to you and telling you what you meant in their life. That's worth more than money.
And that's what we're doing.
Yeah,
I mean, isn't that what Faye did all those years ago, right? I mean, Faye Odell. So, I mean, we're doing this for Faye.
Yeah.
And, you know, I remember one of the things I remember, and I didn't get to know Faye very well, but I did get to know him, and I got to hear it a couple times. And one of the things that I remember was, if I could just be an 8th grade football coach forever, it's the greatest job,
true,
right?
Yeah.
And I thought about that, and I was like, I was at a point in my life where I'm thinking I'm going to coach, I don't know, college, NFL.
Yeah.
And now as I get older, I'm like, man, he might have exactly known something, right?
True.
And then when I get to meet middle school coaches, they know the transition that they're helping to go from kind of teenager to manhood.
Right.
And it's like, this is the year I'm going to teach you, right?
Yeah.
And so I think he knew more than I gave him credit for, right? I probably should have listened better.
No, he was a great man. I laughed when I became a head coach. Everywhere I was, I'd have Faye come in and talk to our kids. He was a great motivator, you know, a great coach, was a great Christian guy.
Yeah.
But but just a great gentleman. Learned a lot from him.
Now, you got out of coaching. All right, let's back up a little bit. So you got into coaching. Tell us about the circle that got you then. I know you finished at administration as athletic director, right?
Yes.
So let's talk about where you started.
Okay. I started I graduated in January.
Okay.
Well, there's no jobs, coaching jobs in January.
Well, if they are, they're probably in a program you don't want.
Yeah,
we
true.
could go into that story, yeah.
So I worked construction, and I knew right then why I got an education. I wasn't going to do that the rest of my life. So anyway, so I kept trying to, you know, as jobs wouldn't come and open. They weren't available. So my first coaching job I got at the coaching clinic. It was in Tulsa.
Okay.
And I had 3 job offers. One was at Joe Straw.
Okay.
Was head coach at Bremen, Oklahoma. I don't know if you know where Bremen is. Just
as
far as you cross the line.
Let me see.
Black
is it still in our state?
Yeah, just barely.
Okay.
Just barely.
All right.
And so went up there and interviewed, and I'll never forget the superintendent was taking me around and said, and I had a Bachelor of Science. I could teach some science and social studies and all that stuff. But he said, no, you're going to be teaching chemistry. And I said, chemistry? Mm-hmm. He said, yeah. I said, I don't think I can't get certified in chemistry. He said, I think I can get you certified.
Did you throw out your PE degree? Did you do I need to remind you I got a PE degree?
Yeah. So he said, well, let me show you their lab room. Well, they had a lot of money at Bremen. I don't know where it come from, oil or whatever. So he took me in there. The only thing I knew what was in there was a test tube. I said, I told him, I said, you expect me to teach these kids chemistry? Mm-hmm. And I said, I recognize one thing in this layout, and that's a test tube. I said, anyway, I said, I appreciate it and all that. So then I had a job offer at Choctaw and one at Tulsa Hale. And Ray Littlejohn, who played at OU, was one of my high school coaches, and I told him, and he'd been coaching a while. Mm-hmm. I said, which one of those did you take? Well, he said, the gentleman at Choctaw. He said, that's been a stronger program. He said, I think you'd like that. So anyway, that was my first job, was at Choctaw under Bill Jensen, and he was a great influence. He was a Hall of Fame coach. Yep. I was there with him 6 years. Then I always wanted to, in my bucket list, I always wanted to coach at Ada, because that in the 70s and 70s, there was a powerhouse.
Steamrollers.
Yeah. And so I had an opportunity. Craig McBroom was the head coach there, and he called, and I loved Choctaw and Bill Jensen and everything. And I told Coach, I said, I've got this call from Ada, and he said, what are you going to do? And I said, that's been on my bucket list. I said, another thing, I appreciate everything you've done. He said, well, you're crazy if you don't take it. So anyway, went from Choctaw to Ada, worked there, great experience. He's another Hall of Fame coach, Craig was. And then I went to, I'd always wanted to be a head coach in now 6A school. Back then it was 5A.
Right, 5A, yep.
And so I applied everywhere, and I'd come in there and I'd come in second. And so I was just trying to find out, is there something I'm doing wrong? Or I'd ask them, so what, the same thing I said, or what, my resume or whatever is not good enough? I said, no. I said, just you don't have any experience in it. I said, well, how am I going to get it?
How do I get it? I love that one, yeah,
just give me a chance. So anyway, my first from Ada, I went to Prague, which was then a Class A school. That was my first head coaching job. Great job. I was lucky because they had been down, and I inherited a great bunch of kids. I mean, great bunch of kids. And we won the conference championship, got in the playoffs. And then Noble called. And I don't know if you remember John Dunlap. He was already gone, but he owned Dunlap Sporting Goods.
Absolutely.
And he always ordered my equipment and everything like that. And I said, I think I'm going to take Noble's job. He said, Noble? He said, you think you're better than the 100 coaches been through there? You're going to win at Noble? I said, you can't win at Noble.
Wow.
And well, Coach, I said it's a bigger school and pays more than they're building a new stadium. He said, oh, yeah. I said, go down there and see how you like that new money and big money and new facilities and stuff, and you go 0-10. See how you like it then. And so I said, well, I'm going to give it a whirl. So anyway, went down there. The Lord blessed me in a lot of ways.
Right.
The Lord takes care of the dumb ones, you know. Anyway, we did good. We got in the playoffs and all that stuff. I was there for 4 or 5 years, and I went to Lawton, Eisenhower. And that was my first chance. Again, at Noble, I'd try to interview and try to get for a larger school. Came up same thing. So Cecil Powell was the athletic director and head coach at Lawton, Eisenhower. And I got that through Craig McBroom. And Cecil had called Craig and asked, he said, I need a defense coordinator. Who would you hire? And he said, well, if you can hire Ray Goldsby. Well, I was a head coach, and he was wanting me as defense coordinator, so I had to. This time I prayed about it. You know what? Can I adjust now? Come and quote from the say the top as a head coach and go back as an assistant. You know, I said, you know, don't let your ego get in the way. Yeah. You know, and it's
a great lesson.
Yeah, a great lesson. And so anyway, it was in a 5A school. Then now it's 6A. It was 5A then, largest class. And Cecil Powell was great. He said, you'll be my defensive coordinator. And said, you run the defense. And Cecil didn't know anything about defense. He's an offensive coach. Yeah, so we were fortunate enough. It's just like being your own separate team. You know, we had the offensive team, a defensive team.
Especially in the larger classes.
Yeah, and that was really, I didn't have much of a adjustment to make. It wasn't like I'd drawn from head coach to the next the head coach of defense.
Right.
And Cecil said, you just tell me what you got planned and how we're going to do this, how we're going to do that. So that was really a fortunate deal there. And then I was there. We should have won the state my first year there. We had some great kids. And Putnam City beat us out in the semifinals, and Putnam City won the final instead of the championship. Well, then Joe Straw was at Edmond. He was the AD and track coach at Edmond. And he called and said, well, would you come up here? And I said, well, I'm really happy here. And my folks we lived out on a farm south of Norman there. And I said, well, it's closer to my family. And so anyway, make a long story short, I come there and I really didn't fit. You know, it was one of those. In fact, to kind of tell you the story, when I was there 1 year and Moore called, and I was able to, a big factor there was, like I told you, I was able to bring the whole staff. When I took Edmond's job, I could bring one. Yeah. Well, then just before season started, I had 2 coaches just up and left. They we probably didn't mesh. Okay. And they'd had a good year. Ron Marvel had been the head coach. Okay. And they got beat in the semifinals. And I should have known this when I came in here. The townspeople were griping about Marvel, and they just got beat in the semifinals. Yeah. And I thought, you know, if they're unhappy being beaten semifinals, that's a smart move for me to make. But anyway.
As we get older, we get smarter about some of these details.
Yeah, you're exactly right.
We're like, now you want me to take what job? Yeah. And I think they went 33-3.
Yeah, and they didn't like it.
You didn't like it? What did you not like about it? Yeah.
So there's a writing on the wall right there. I just wasn't smart enough to. I realized it, but then wasn't smart enough to, comprehend it. And so then. I was able to bring one guy here, and then right at the end, in fact, Straw was head track coach, and one of the guys that left was an offensive line coach, and I said, Joe, you've got to help me out. This was like a week before we start practice, our game situation, season. So anyway, he helped me, and he saved me anyway that year. But then when Moore called, it was one of those deals where you could bring the entire group, and they had just fired the head coach, all the assistants, the superintendent, and the principal. Isn't that,
Wow.
I've
never heard of a clean house like that.
I mean, it was. And then Delano Campbell, who was appointed as assistant superintendent, he's one I interviewed with.
Okay.
And hired me. And so I got to bring everybody in there, and Coach Fernberg was one of them that was there at the time. Then I was fortunate enough to have him join our staff. But then that was a good run, and we had some good kids, and great.
I want to ask you about something. Sorry to interrupt you. You know, so many times, often I watch coaches, and we're on this trajectory where we think we're going up.
Yeah.
Do you think that you'd ended up where you did if you wouldn't have taken the defensive coordinator job?
Yeah, no, I don't think sometimes you have to step down before you step up. You know what I'm saying?
That's right.
And you think, you know, and I've prayed about that a lot. One time I was at Noble, and when I was at Ada, Dr. Thomas was on the board of regents for schools, Northwestern, whatever class that was, whatever, Division II or whatever it is, and he called and said, "I want you to come out and interview at Northwestern."
Okay.
So I went out there, and it's a situation where they just fired that whole staff.
Okay.
But it's a deal where that coach had promised X number of scholarships, and the president said, well, the first thing you have to do is go back and tell those like 20-something kids that we can't give them a scholarship.
Okay.
We can't go from it. I said, you know, and I thought, you know, sometimes unanswered prayers are answered prayers. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
And I've been praying about that. You know, we should take that guy's going to college. And so I finally I said, no, I don't think I'm going to get in that situation. So,
well, we were talking about just even this opportunity. You know, and I've been fortunate in my short coaching career where I have not really just pursued a head job because I have a day job with an organization that I really care a lot about, and I've been able to take care of my family, and I'm happy, and I've always just coached in the afternoon, being a lay coach, right? Yeah. And that confuses parents too. That's interesting. But this year I made a push to be on a campus full time, and the rejection behind that, man, it just irked me. I was like, well, God clearly is opening up this door, and it not only got slammed, I didn't even make the Final Three. And one of the person they brought in for the Final Three has never coached high school football. And then I'm like, I couldn't even see the writing on the wall until my buddy at this lunch is like, did you want to work at a school that brought in a guy that's never coached high school football on a campus? And I'm like, now I'm thinking a little differently.
Yeah.
And then a week later, I get asked an opportunity to sit down with men and women that have coached for decades. And so God knows what we don't, right?
That's what I mean.
And I was so mad. I mean, I'll tell you right now, I mean, John Odell probably heard the lunch that I had with my friend. I was so cranky. I was pissed and really mad. And I don't know if you were like this as a coach. For me, one of my character values is competing.
Yeah.
I was less mad that I didn't get it. I was mad I didn't get to compete for it.
Yeah,
it was like, hold on.
They shut the door over before.
Yeah, I was like, whoa. Well, we want you to hold on deck, and if these three don't want it, then we'll bring you in.
Yeah.
Let me compete, right? Yeah. Let me show up, man.
Just give me a chance.
Yeah, I mean, just in case you haven't noticed, we coached in a state championship game a couple times for 6A. It's a 2A program. Can I get a look?
Yeah.
But to your point, God knows better for us, right?
Yeah, he has a plan.
Yeah.
And you just have to trust in him.
And now I've had this unicorn summer of interviewing and sitting and having these conversations with people like yourself, and it's been such a blessing.
Good.
And so I'm grateful that you would join me. I wanted to talk a little bit more about your time as a coach and some of the spiritual influence that you hope that maybe you got from Faye, that you tried to implement, you know, and Grant Taft, right? Yeah. These were men that were coaching a certain way. What are those stories like now for you as these men are grown and have families and all the different things that you've impacted? Do you have a story of someone you coached that you want to share?
Someone that I coached or where?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's, first of all, I was fortunate for the men that I worked under as assistants. With Bill Jensen, he was strong on work ethics. Craig McBroom was strong on organization. Cecil Powell was strong on player relationships.
Interesting.
So you draw from all those, and then like Faye Odell comes in, and determination and stand with things like that. All of that stuff, everybody that you work with, I try to draw the good things from them. If I didn't particularly agree with it, then let that go, but try to get every one of their good characteristics, and then form that with you, and then do that with your kids. And then probably, when Coach Fernberg and I, we played for the state championship in 84, it was 84 state championship. Well, we were undefeated going into that season. We were 3-0. We had a quarterback who had led the state in passing his junior year. And in the first 3 games of the season, he was leading the state in passing then. And we're playing Enid, and we lost him. We lost a guard and a secondary guy. And I remember as a staff, after that game was over, we found out that we'd lost our quarterback for the season. I was and said, we was going to meet on Saturday morning, as we always did. I said, somehow when we come in for a team meeting, we got to try to keep from crying, we got to
put your team doesn't know, right? Before the pep talk, hey coaches, we need to come in here. Do we have anyone else that can take a snap? Oh wait, we lost the guy that snapped it. We need that guy too. A guard and someone that can cover someone. So we've all been there.
So anyway, that's kind of what was confronted with, and most of our kids, a lot of our kids were doing both ways, even for 5A school. And so we had to kind of come to Jesus meeting, so to speak, or where are we going to go from here? And like I say, God works in mysterious ways, I really do believe. So we had a team meeting on Saturday morning and told them, and we'd always told them this, everybody can play when you're playing good. Everybody can play at Star City when they're feeling good and they're frisky. And we always say, well, hey, you remember the first day of 2 days and how frisky you were, and this was now in the 6th game of the season or whatever. Said, if you can regain that, enthusiasm. Well, the same way, and we always tell them, said, how are you going to play when the wheels start coming off? Let's say we kick off and they run all the way back, or they kicked us and we fumble on the 2-yard line. Are you going to grumble when you come out there grappling about this and grab about that? So the key to how we perform in life, and this we always try to relate to how it is in your life too, because hopefully you're doing something that's going to transfer to their adulthood. I said, how are you going to react when things don't go your way? You're going to quit, or are you going, because everything's going to be based on that. And so anyway, we had some players had a little quarterback there, Jackie Stafford, that came in for this guy, and he was Jackie about 5'7", but he was quick as a rabbit and everything. So anyway, we go in, we're 3-0, we lose that game right there. Then we end up we lose the next 3. I think we end up the season 5-5, didn't we? But we lucked enough. We decided we were going to split offense and defense teams, because maybe by the end of the season, if they were, say, second team or even third team, if they're playing one way, then we'll kind of develop them hopefully to where they can be a starter. So everything like that worked out to our advantage, and they called us Cinderella team and all that, which we probably were. But and we got beat. Tulsa Washington beat us in the finals.
Wow!
But during in that group of kids there, and the group before, Greg Johnson, who played at OU, that was a good group. And we didn't have the success with that team as we did the team after him. But guys like him were great stories. He didn't have a family life. His dad was really a alcoholic anyway. I remember we had gone to the OU clinic, come back, and Greg called and said, can you come to the hospital? I said, yeah, what's the matter? He said, well, my mom has died. So when I got there, she had passed away, and there he was. He was having to call the family to tell them, and his dad's sitting over there, didn't even try to help out. But people like that, and then later on he said, well, you've been like my dad, Guys that you coach and turn out like that, is a big blessing. And then they turn out they're successful in their lives as adults.
It's interesting, all the coaches that have sat here and all the Hall of Famers and all the different accolades, there's been an interesting theme. I've heard about more funerals hospital visits, doctor's visits, weddings, kids' births, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, well, I thought you just coached him.
Yeah.
Right?
True.
And that's been the beautiful part of this is those stories,
Yeah.
right?
True.
And that someone felt that you loved them so much.
Yeah.
And that didn't mean you didn't push them. You know, it's interesting. I think one of the things that I've taken so far early on in this process is I think if you'll love a kid, they'll put way more in for you.
Oh,
And I wish all the coaches knew that.
You know, there's no. You know, I used to tell our coaches that said, you can get on a kid as hard as you want to in practice, but somewhere in that practice, find something that they've done good. It may be just one little thing. Maybe he took a step in the right direction on this particular play or whatever. But find something. As long as when you're getting on him that you can compliment him on, then when practice is over, just put your arm around and hug him, say, I love you. You had a tough day, you'll have a better one tomorrow, you know. And kids know, you don't fool kids. I mean,
that's exactly
know
right.
If you love them,
they know who cares about them.
And if they know that you have a love for them and that you really are interested in them besides just on the field. You're interested in their family life or they're having troubles there in school, try to help them there. Then you're just going to get more out of them. I used to tell our coaches, we had a policy, they could never cuss a kid.
Yeah.
You know, I said, if you have to cuss a kid, then you're motivating them in the wrong manner. You're not going to coach for me.
I grew up in a home that cuss words were just not allowed. I'm not saying it didn't happen on occasion. I'm saying it just was not intended. And I've been on staffs that don't cuss. And I've been on staffs that have allowed it. And it's interesting the noise that the kids pick up from that.
Yeah.
I think you can have such a different intensity, especially with young kids, if you don't use those words.
Yeah.
Because when you use that word, now the trigger is that's all they heard.
Yeah.
Right? Even if it was positive.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been on a staff where I was just like, guys, can we just pick some better vocabulary?
Yeah.
Right? We're asking our kids to be better.
Yeah.
And then I've heard more in this deal than like a sailor's conversation. And so, you know, that to me was taught actually from kind of the Bill Blankenship tree is you can coach with a tremendous amount of intensity if you do two things. You don't attack a kid and you don't curse at him.
Yeah, true.
And I don't know why we don't teach a clinic more on that.
That's exactly right.
I mean, you
especially young coaches when you're starting out, you know.
And it's not like, I'm not saying that, you know, we've all had the bad call or the bad moment. You turn around and you probably say something you shouldn't have, right? Yeah. But I'm talking, you're working with a youth and you're asking them to do all this, and then you downgrade yourself to a vocabulary, and then I think they don't hear all the stuff you were trying to coach them.
True. That's right.
And so I think we're going to teach that class.
Yeah.
We're going to teach that. I think you could.
That's that some way, especially with young coaches when they start on their first job, whatever, you know, if they can be lucky enough to coach under somebody like that, where they get a role model, so to speak, of how they want to do it, or how it in my opinion, the way it should be done. You know, because you can get off on the wrong foot. You know, I mean, and they're looking to you as the head coach.
Yep.
They're looking to you to lead them, guide them. You're actually coaching them. You know, to
100%.
So they're looking at you. If you're that type of person, if they see that type of deal, then that's the wrong role model. But that's what a lot of them are going to pattern themselves after.
Well, you started this conversation with something around love. I think love and intensity. I think sometimes in Christianity, we let the world remove that from us.
True.
And I actually disagree.
Yeah,
I think the most intense human hung on a cross for all of us,
right?
And he did it out of love and sacrifice and intensity, and yet somehow we get to say as Christian men, if I talk about these things or I do these things, then I'm not a man.
Yeah,
and I think that's completely wrong. The one thing I notice about young coaches is it's kind of like young players. Do you remember like the first game when a guy has not played varsity football and it's the energy they burn in pregame?
Yeah.
You're watching them and you're like, oh my gosh, the fuse is lit. He's not even going to make it to snap to one. And I watch these young coaches do something similar. And I'm like, if you would redirect the energy into the technique, into what they're doing, instead of just to the outcome, you'll get a different product.
Oh, yeah.
And I watch these young coaches and they're watching plays and the play doesn't work. And I'm like, well, just watch his first step, then watch his second step.
Yeah.
And did his, you know, what was his body position at the top of his route, you know?
Yeah.
Like, you can do that all day.
Yeah.
I could yell at him for dropping the ball, but I could coach the other stuff.
That's right.
You know, and that always baffles me. So I appreciate you sharing that. You know, you've hired a lot of men and women. Do you want to talk a little bit about the characteristics that you really see and try to pull out in those interviews? I mean, are you trying to find out if it is their passion? Like, what's your technique? You've had a lot of success down there at Moore, hiring some great men and women. What's that look like?
Well, first of all, I don't care if you're a head coach, an AD, or what. Mm-hmm. You're no better than the people around you. Yeah. You know, and I always wanted to hire people that were better than me. Yep. Most of the time I was lucky enough to do that. There's a prime example right there you're getting ready to talk to.
Yeah.
But, you know, when you're talking to someone, you can rise fortunate enough to have a feel if they had a passion for kids, or if they were just in it for, if their first question is, well, how much am I going to make? Then that, they start off on the wrong foot with me.
Okay.
You know? But, you know, the thing that you look for, I think, in hiring people is their character.
Yeah.
You know, are they passionate about what they're getting ready to do? Mm-hmm. Are they loyal?
Yeah.
You know, and I told them, I said, you know, it was when I was coaching, I didn't ever think I had a job. When I went to be AD, then I thought, this is a dang job.
This is a job? You were doing recess, as Chris
before,
Thurman says, before this.
Yeah, that's
okay.
Right.
All right.
So they didn't have to,
Yeah.
You know, I told the superintendent one time, I said, you don't have to pay me for coaching, but said, you're going to pay me a heck of a lot for teaching.
I love it.
But anyway, so when they're talking to coaches, one of the most important things is loyalty.
Okay.
And I'd be calling head coach, and I said, if you've had problems, if you're on a trip and you've had a problem with a kid or you're a fish or you get kicked out, I better get a call that night.
Okay.
So this is what, if I don't hear my superintendent the next morning or a parent tell me about a problem that you had, I said, you're going to be in more trouble by not telling me something, if I have to find it out rather than you tell me. I said, I'm going to have your back. You have my back too.
Okay.
Know? So that's why, to me, loyalty in hiring a two-way street. You know, same with them. I've got to have their back, and they've got to have mine. That doesn't mean you're going to approve of things that aren't going right.
Right.
It just means that I'm going to back you up. I'm going to hear your story. You know.
Yeah.
But keep me posted. I'll keep you posted. All that stuff. So. Well, hiring for people, character was a big factor.
Okay.
Loyalty. You know, you can, and I think back when I first started coaching, you know, when you first get out, you think you know everything.
Yeah.
You know, you can teach. You can teach if they don't. Like my first job was assistant football and head wrestling coach. I never even wrestled.
Okay.
And I'll never forget first practice something. Bill Jensen was the head baseball coach, and he had a field that was immaculate. And we didn't start out practice, and we ended up so long and be under lights, and the lights had it on the baseball field. And we was doing a drill at the end of practice, and he put me in the center field because I was the rookie. He said, whatever drill I send you, you turn and send to coach over on third base line. Okay. And then they sent it back to me. So we went down and they looked up and they had to lay them head to head. They started rolling. Rolled over to me, and I rolled them back. So then you had those little, you didn't ever have these little thick cotton shirt jerseys. They probably weigh 5 pounds. Then when they got wet, they weighed 20 pounds. Well, when I got in the house, we got back in the dressing room, I said, Coach, you know, do you think you didn't know everything? I said, tell me, because I always thought drills, my idea had to pertain to what you're going to be doing during the game or game related. I said, Coach, what? I don't really understand the purpose of this drill where you roll them. And, you know, he was the baseball coach. He said the exact same. He said, how do you think I'm going to get those goat heads out of that outfield? And then there was those kids that roll, and they get up and look like they've been shot with a shotgun full of grass burrs and goat heads. The blood was just going through those jerseys. Well, you know, that's what I mean. You think you know everything.
You think you know.
Yeah.
You think.
So when I was interviewing coach, the bottom line is, I don't really care how much they know. You know, hopefully we can help in that manner there.
Okay.
That doesn't mean if they're for a Bill Blankenship, you're interviewing him, you don't have to question that deal. But tell them somebody just starting off or whatever. But anyway, So that
I don't know. Bill had a hard time getting his first job from his own dad.
Yeah, I know. That's why the first job's tough.
It's
you know,
tough.
and then your first head job's tough. So anyway, but that's one of the things that you look at, or I looked at as far as when hiring someone was not so much their knowledge as well as their character, their loyalty, their passion.
I think there's some people in South Oklahoma City, in the Moore area. I won't use Moore. You can't say South Oklahoma City. I'll get a whole bunch of hate mail, you know. But are glad that you didn't go be a CPA, and you've had an impact of hiring a ton of people. Is there anything that you want to share that you just feel on your heart or led to about, you know, where you're at right now and what you feel, and kind of maybe talk about Faye a little bit?
Yeah, I think, you know, as you get older, like I'm in about my second overtime right now. I already finished regulation. I'm hoping to get to third overtime. You know, you start reflecting back on things, and I've been so blessed so many ways. And you see where back then you didn't realize that God was in the plan. God had the plan for you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you look back at things and like those job decisions, stuff like that, and how you got to where you are, and that type of deal. You realize God had that plan in your life
The whole time.
The whole time. He knew I wasn't going to be a CPA. You know,
He's like, we'll let him try this for a year.
Yes,
He's a PE coach.
He's going to find out.
Yeah.
He's going to find out real quick. But you know, as you get along in there, then those type of things mean so much more to you. And then when, like we mentioned this earlier, when kids that you've coached, and like this Greg Johnson now, he's probably close to 60, something like that. You know, men like that you've coached, and they come back and tell you what you've meant to them in their life. There's no amount of money, I don't care what you make. Yeah. Means a lot more than money. Yeah. You know.
Yeah, there's you've I don't know the right expression, but you have definitely changed the trajectory of a lot of people. It might not have changed your bank account, but it changed the kingdom, and it changed the trajectory of South Oklahoma City in the Moore area and everything you've done. And so I'm grateful. You know, it's interesting. You're the third person that we've had on the couch that has told John, so he tells me everything, just so you know, about the phone calls. So that you're like, well, why would you ask me to come do that? So I want to leave you with something that I've challenged every coach. There's so much humility that is set on this couch. I want you to go home and tell your family just one or two of those stories. That you've hung those shingles. Yeah. You've changed those lives. And we need more men and women to keep doing that. Yeah.
Well, you just, like I say, in your journey, you hope for those things, you know. And during the journey, it's just heck bent for leather, so to speak, and you don't realize it or whatever. But those are the things you hope for, and then, like I say, those are the rewards you get, you know.
Well,
because I've been so blessed, and where I'm at right now, you know, I still think I have the passion to go back and start coaching. I'm smart enough to know that's not going to last. You know, I wouldn't last through 2-hour practice now if life depended on it. But, you know, I always felt like when I got out from head coach to the AD, the reason I took that was my last year I was the head coach and the athletic director, and then they told me you're going to have to make a choice. And we had we played in the state championship game. We had 6 sophomores that started at the state championship games. We had a great team coming back. But I'd always seen as I was coaching, I'd see coaches that left or got out with an empty tank at the school where they're at. They left because they were out of talent, you know, and they would maybe chase the talent. And I don't know if that's their choice, then that's fine. But I always promised, I hope I'm not going to get out and leave a guy with an empty tank. We had a great guy. David Snookhouse was my offense coordinator, so he took over. So he got good talent, didn't leave him dry. Okay. You know, so he could feel good about going to the next level. Yeah. And even though I still wanted to coach, when they said you don't have a choice, then I thought, well, you know, how much longer I'm going to be able to coach, you know.
Okay.
And so that was probably a deciding factor, along being able to turn it over to some people good. I had Coach Fernberg was on that staff. I had some great coaches.
Yeah.
So I knew the kids were going to be taken care of.
Yeah.
You know, you didn't feel bad about that.
Yeah.
You felt bad about telling them you weren't going to be there.
Yeah.
You know, but
Yeah,
you're going to be there for them.
Yeah.
I'll
Yeah.
just be at another office. I'll be down here or whatever. But so those things there, as you get older, you look back and reflect on
The appreciation
that.
around it.
Yeah.
Well, it's been a blessing to have
Yeah,
you,
but
and
thank you.
I'm so grateful to meet you.
Well, I appreciate meeting you and appreciate the opportunity to come
Hopefully,
here.
we'll see each other at some of these lunches. Okay. All right.
Thanks,
Thank
Doc.
you so
Good
much.
luck to you
Oh,
this coming
absolutely.
season.